Am I audible?
Good morning, sir. Yes, sir.
Good morning. Please turn on the cameras. I request more of you to turn on your cameras. Okay. In the previous class, we were discussing about the limitations of welfare schemes. Okay. Here in this class, let's talk about the steps taken by the government to overcome the limitations that we have already discussed. Okay. If you remember, we have discussed about what is welfare and what are the stakeholders in the society who provides the welfare support to the population, and also what is the concept of welfare state and what is the need for welfare mechanism in a society like India especially. Okay. And also the limitations of welfare schemes followed by steps taken by the government. Okay. The first and foremost important step taken by the government to improve the efficiency of delivery of welfare mechanism is to introduce DBT mechanism, direct beneficiary transfer mechanism of welfare services. Okay. What is DBT mechanism? Providing of welfare services directly to the beneficiary's account in the form of cash. Okay. Providing of welfare services or providing of welfare benefits directly to the beneficiary without having to cross over through any intermediary, directly crediting the amount or cash in terms of crediting the cash directly in the bank account of the beneficiary. Okay. Any example? Do you have any idea or any example of DBT mechanism, any scheme? Jandhan Yojana is an instrument for DBT mechanism, Tanya. Jandhan Yojana is the means, actually. It is an instrument. PM Kisan, yes, right. PM Kisan. So using Jandhan Yojana, what is Jandhan Yojana? Providing bank account facilities to each and every household and also each and every each and every adult. Okay, that is the objective of Jandhan Yojana. Using that Jandhan Yojana, benefits are provided to directly to the beneficiary account, like Pahal scheme, PM Kisan. What is Pahal scheme? Under Pahal scheme, subsidy, LPG subsidy is directly provided to the beneficiary, right? So earlier, before that, the gas cylinders are used, gas cylinders were supposed to be purchased from the regular dealers at a subsidized price. Now you are expected to purchase directly from the market at market price, and the difference between subsidy amount and the market price, that amount is actually credited directly into the bank account, right? Okay. DBT mechanism examples is, let's say, Pahel scheme, okay, PM Kisan, okay, input subsidy support is actually given. See, most of the times the government is supposed to make available the inputs of the agriculture, inputs to the farmer at a cheaper price, at a cheaper cost, isn't it? Just a second. Is my is it clear? Right. So it is the responsibility of the government to provide facilities, to provide inputs at a cheaper cost, isn't it? If at all the government is unable to provide it, PM Kisan, it is actually a cash input support. The cash that was given to the farmers as a means of input support, okay, that is given before every cropping season, right? So these are the examples. Now the question is, see, this is very important. A question has not been asked on this topic, DBT mechanism. Very important. A question can be expected in GS paper 2. Okay. And also these arguments may also will help you to answer question on farm subsidies in GS paper 3. Okay. First of all, let us understand what are the advantages of it. What are the advantages of DBT mechanism? Tell me. What do you think are the advantages of DBT mechanism? Yes.
Then you can remove the trickle down effect. Any middleman will not come into the picture.
Trickle
So
trickle
there will
down
be
is
no
the
worry.
wrong word. Trickle down is the wrong word. Trickle down is actually the benefits of the spending or benefits of large spending will eventually lead to the trickle down to the lower sections. Okay, it is trickling down to the lower sections. It's contrary to what you're saying actually, right? I know. I got what you're saying. Without any intermediary, removing the intermediaries, this will help in preventing the leakages. Okay, yes. First and foremost is actually advantage is actually it prevents leakages and corruption. Prevents leakages and corruption. Okay, best example Narega. Earlier, the money used to be directly given at the site in the form of cash. The local sarpanch or the local government bureaucrat used to provide the cash directly to the beneficiaries. Okay, now there is no physical delivery of cash. The money is directly sent by the government, Ministry of Rural Development, into the bank account of every beneficiary, Narega beneficiary. So there is no middleman here. They can go and they can go to the bank and withdraw the cash. So right. If you remember Pahel scheme, what is the advantage of Pahel scheme? It will prevent the leakages. See, earlier this domestic consumption of LPG cylinders used to be provided at a very subsidized price. Okay, it is only benefited for the benefit was only meant for domestic consumers, not commercial consumers. That means if I'm running a restaurant, I cannot expect the government to provide me subsidized cylinders, right? But earlier people used to purchase it and divert it to the domestic households with domestic gas cord. They used to purchase it at a subsidized price and they used to divert this to commercial purpose. Now there is no subsidized availability of gas cylinder. Everybody, even if it is a domestic consumer or a commercial consumer, you have to procure it from the market at market price, and whatever the subsidy amount that is given directly into the bank account of the beneficiary. So this prevents what? Leakages, diversion. So that's what leakage is. Okay, that is why they are asking for, the government is actually contemplating of providing DBT mechanism in the fertilizer subsidies as well. We know the diversion of fertilizers that is meant for the farmer, meant for the agriculture, is often diverted for industrial purpose. Okay, so this is the reason they are coming up with neem coated urea and all these things, but we don't know how far and how effective neem coated urea. Neem coating has twin benefits. One thing, it will make it unfit for industrial consumption, and second thing, it will actually trickle, it will reduce its dissolution of the urea, thereby reducing the thereby increasing the conservation of the reducing the usage of urea. Okay, but the best way of preventing the leakage is actually to directly provide the benefit directly in the bank account of the farmer, isn't it? So this is the biggest advantage. And anything else, right? Yes, Palguna.
So it encourages the inclusive banking because now everybody needs to have a bank account.
Okay. It encourages financial inclusion. Is it the main advantage of DBT mechanism, or is it the necessity of DBT mechanism?
Byproduct.
Byproduct. Okay. It is just like saying, how do you justify demonetization? It has increased widespread usage of UPI payments, but that's not the main intention of demonetization. It is to reduce the terror financing, reduce the corruption, black money. Okay, if you keep on justifying demonetization just because it has increased the utilization of electronic payments, no. So anyways, I'll give you, yes, somebody raised your hand. Yes, choice with beneficiaries to spend as per the requirement. Very good. Choice for the beneficiaries. For example, let's say under PDS, the government is providing a certain quality of food grains. Being a beneficiary, I may or may not like the quality that is being provided, quality of the food grains that are being provided to me. Just let's say if the government, instead of providing the food grains, if it is providing you money, I have the choice to purchase it from the market, whatever the quality of food I want. I may require to add some more amount of the money. I will be happy to do that. But it provides choice, wider choice to the consumer, wider choice to the beneficiary. It is very, very important, providing wider choice to the beneficiary. Again, coming to, let's say, see, coming to fertilizer industry. Okay, I'll give the fertilizer example later on. There will be a competition actually. There will not be any as long as the government is providing it, there is no competition, there is no choice. You have to take whatever the government is providing, wider choice to the government. And anybody, anything else? What is the other biggest advantage of DBT mechanism, which cannot be ensured through normal delivery of welfare services? Inclusive. Inclusive. Okay, for example, let's say the government wants to provide PDS. Due to topographical barriers or due to geographical barriers, it may or may not reach certain areas. But instead of providing food grains, if the government says that I'm going to provide only the money, then it can reach each and every beneficiary irrespective of the geographical barriers. It is in fact cost effective and time efficient. Why is it cost effective? To procure the food grains, the government has to procure the food grains, store them, and transport them to each and every village, to each and every PDS outlet in India. How much of transport and storage cost is required for it? Isn't it not a burden? What is the ultimate objective? You have to make the food grains available at a cheaper cost. Either you give the food grains or give the money. The net effect is same. You have to make sure that they are going to purchase this food grains at a cheaper cost. So if you are not able to provide food grains at a subsidized price, then provide them money. This is much more cheaper and this is much more inclusive. You can actually cover more number of beneficiaries. At one click, you can disburse the money to crores of beneficiaries. Time efficient, cost efficient, and also it is going to overcome the geographical and topographical barriers. If during pandemic, let's say if during any natural disaster at any other time, if there are any barriers of movement of food grains, then you can give them money so that they can purchase it from the local market. So this is inclusive, time efficient, and cost effective. Isn't it? So these are all the benefits of DBT mechanism. Okay, and also this is not going to, DBT mechanism is not going to distort the market. Sometimes subsidies have a negative implications on distorting the market. When the subsidies are, when the welfare mechanisms are going to be provided in terms of goods and services by the government directly. Best example is fertilizer subsidies. The government is actually making the fertilizers available at a cheaper cost by directly providing to the farmers at the subsidized price. In India, urea prices are regulated. Of course, non-urea based fertilizers are still deregulated to a larger extent, but still urea is highly, its price is regulated. See, how does it work? There is a fertilizer manufacturing company. Okay, this manufacturing company is actually selling directly to fertilizer to farmers. Okay, and the fertilizer that is sold to the farmer is highly, the price of the fertilizer that is sold to the farmer is highly regulated. The price is regulated. Okay, let's say if the manufacturing cost is 1000 rupees per bag, the government is asking the fertilizer company to sell it at 800 rupees per bag, and the 200 rupees is given to whom? Directly to the manufacturer. See, the fertilizer subsidy mechanism is slightly different from the LPG subsidy mechanism. In the LPG subsidy, the government is not providing subsidy to the manufacturer. It is directly providing the subsidy to the beneficiary, and the manufacturer is selling at the market price. So the manufacturer is completely out of this whole ecosystem of subsidy. They're just going to provide the services to everybody equally. There is no differentiation between the consumers. The government is going to provide the subsidy amount to the beneficiaries, but in case of fertilizer subsidy, the government is going to provide subsidy amount per bag to the manufacturer depending upon how many bags he sold, how many bags the manufacturer sold in the market. Tell me, what is the problem with this fertilizer subsidy? What is the problem with this kind of mechanism? Do you find any problem? Yes.
So due to urea-based subsidy, it would encourage inefficiency in the companies. They would increase the prices.
Right, inefficiency in the company. For example, the manufacturer would never want to reduce his cost, because the government is anyways giving me subsidy of 200 rupees. Why would I reduce the cost? There is no competition. In fact, in India, unfortunately, the subsidy amount is firm specific, not common for everybody. If is fertilizer firm A is producing the bag of fertilizer at 1100 rupees, it would receive 300 rupees of subsidy. If a fertilizer firm B is producing at 1000 rupees, it would reduce the subsidy amount of 200 rupees. At the end of the day, you are going to sell for 800 rupees only, no matter what is your manufacturing cost. And the difference between the subsidy amount and the manufacturing cost is going to be given by the compensated by the government. Then where is the competition? Where is the incentive for me to reduce my expenditure, reduce my cost? Understand? So the inefficiency in the firms is going to be, it breeds inefficiency sometimes. Sometimes subsidies breeds inefficiency. The problem is not the intention, the problem is actually the mechanism of the welfare subsidy. Yes, we need welfare subsidy, we need subsidized provision of again inputs to the farming. This will reduce the cost of food production, this will also increase the farmers income, this will reduce the cost of production, which will be reflected in the which will help in controlling the food inflation. Controlling the food inflation is very important for ensuring food security for large population, especially for a country where 80 crores of population is depending upon the government Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. Yes, the intention is good, it is very good, we have to provide subsidies to the farmers, but what is the mechanism and what is its consequence? So just change the mechanism. Okay, so it overcomes the inefficiency. Inefficiency due to certain subsidies. You understand what I'm saying? It is not going to distort the market, basically. Not going to distort the market. Can you give me any other examples now that we're talking about the agriculture example? There is another example from the agriculture industry where the government subsidies often leads to inefficiency in the market. Come on, what is the most pertinent issue in agriculture? MSP. MSP. Now government is actually providing MSP. How? By directly physically procuring from the farmers. See, MSP is declared for more than 20 to almost 22 to 23 crops. Okay, but procurement is hardly done for two or three crops. Of course, recently with the advent of PM Asha, they started expanding the procurement to other millets, pulses, oil seeds, and all these things. But for a long time, procurement was largely confined to two food grains, which is rice and wheat. Right? What is the problem here? Even in the procurement is confined to where? Confined to few agriculturally rich states like Punjab, Haryana, certain South Indian states, where the FCA network was pretty good. But in the Eastern India, Northeastern India, where the FCA penetration was not so good, FCA network is not so good, it could not procure the food grains. Then what is the use of declaring MSP? It is not inclusive. The problem is actually MSP benefits were not inclusive. There is a reason why farmer struggles were actually mostly confined to the northern plains. There are hardly any farmer protests when the farm laws were introduced in the Bihar. because they were not worried about whether the government is procured or not procured, because the procurement was anyways weak. We didn't witness the same level of farmer protest in Assam because the procurement was anyways weak. But in Haryana and Punjab region, in Western UP, the procurement was very high. So with the advent of the formulas, which were repealed later on by the government during the COVID time, when the government introduced formulas, then all these farmers were suspicious of this MSP mechanism. The government may withdraw MSP mechanism. The rest of the farmers didn't even care about it, because anyways they were not the beneficiaries. So this is what I'm talking about. It is going to be inclusive. It is going to be inclusive. Let's say if the government is actually provide MSP benefits through price deficiency payment system, that means it is giving the freedom to the farmer to sell it to anybody in the market, and the difference between the market price and the MSP is going to be compensated by the government by crediting the amount directly into the bank account of the farmer. Let us say the MSP of bag of rice is 1000 rupees. That means government is saying that I am going to procure the bag of rice at 1000 rupees, but the market price is only 800 rupees. Okay, you sell it to the market at 800 rupees. I am going to credit that extra 200 rupees into your bank account. Done. This will reduce the cost of the government for procuring the food grains, storing it and distributing it for any other purpose. And also it's not going to distort the market. The problem is government has become a parallel market. The idea is to reduce the inefficiency in the agriculture market rather than becoming the market by itself. Government should come at the very last stage as a last resort. In most of the states, procurement of the food grains by the government at MSP is politically sensitive issue. Even if there is a need or not, there is no need, it has become imperative for the governments because it is politically sensitive issue. Just I dare any government to say that we are going to remove MSP mechanism, we are going to stop procuring the food grains from the farmers. No government would dare to do that, would dare to say that. So this is the problem. Okay, so this is distorting the market. Agriculture is actually becoming so government procurement has become a parallel market. The idea is to make the agriculture product competitive in the normal market based on the natural principles of demand and supply. And if at all you want to give any support, don't distort the market, don't intervene in the market. You provide subsidy. Subsidy should be provided in the form of subsidy rather than intervening in the market. So the subsidy delivery should be changed, and DBT mechanism is best example. So I can give you can give examples like fertilizer subsidies, where it is going to helpful. MSP subsidies, there is a scope to overcome the inefficiencies and overcome market inefficiencies by introducing DBT mechanism in fertilizer subsidy and MSP subsidies. Clear? Any doubt? Right. Now, disadvantages or concerns, issues, whatever. Tell me, what are the issues with respect to with this DBT mechanism? If it is so good, why are we not implementing it already? Yes.
Then I believe it becomes more difficult for the government in order to regulate the behavior of people once they're beneficiary, once they receive this benefit.
Right, right. Sumati says no way to regulate spending. Right, right. That is right. No way to regulate spending. And yes, yes, Sidhu.
So it will be harder to identify the people because in PM Kisan, for instance, sorry, sir, my point was inclusivity is with some issues. Like in PM Kisan, it is the tenant farmers are not being counted for. Not everybody is included in it, or in some
Right.
cases, the subsidy is provided to people who should not be getting it, like rich farmers
Perfect.
who have hundreds of acres of land.
Very good. And financial coverage in India, Kesang, yes, right. All these points are right. Very good. So first of all, the point is Identification of beneficiary remains a challenge even in the DBT mechanism. The problem is actually you have changed the mechanism. Very good. That has reduced the leakages. But are you identifying the beneficiary properly? That would remain the same. It is not going to overcome the issue. Which issue? Some subsidies tend to be regressive. Okay. The same fertilizer subsidy. So you are saying that fertilizer subsidy is supposed to be provided in the form of cash, not by making the fertilizer available at a cheaper price directly at the shop. Okay. So that's what we are saying through DBT mechanism. The point is, who are you going to provide the money? The landlord? In India, where tenancy is concealed, hidden, because of the rigid tenancy laws, most of the tenancy is oral tenancy in India, informal tenancy in India. It is not well documented. Until and unless you show the tenancy document, you are not going to receive the benefits. The person who is actually receiving, the landlord may receive it. See, it's not. See, for example, if I go to fertilizer shop and I purchase the fertilizer, can I claim the benefit because I'm not a farmer? So even an industrialist would come and purchase the fertilizer, and can he claim the benefit directly from the government? No. So there should be a criteria. So you are supposed to give it only for whom? The farmer. So how are you going to do it? In fact, there is a mechanism actually. So biometric authentication physical uptake. Bapu. Biometric authenticated physical uptake. That means the farmer is supposed to give his biometric information and authenticate that he is the right beneficiary and purchase it. Then he may receive it. Right. But the problem is in India, the land, land records are not well managed. So who is a farmer? Who is not a farmer? The definition of farmer itself is so controversial. So identification of beneficiary remains a challenge. Understand? Right. Next. What is the guarantee that the money, yes, somebody said, yes, there is no regulation on the spending. What is the guarantee that the money that is being given to the beneficiaries in the place of welfare services directly, welfare services are goods directly, what is the guarantee that the money will be spent for the intended purpose for which it was given? Right. So that is the problem. So misutilization of subsidy amount. Okay. For example, let's say PDS, under public distribution system, the government is providing subsidized food grains directly to the beneficiaries. Now from tomorrow the government says that I'm not going to provide you food grains, I'm going to give you the money, you purchase it from the market. Right. Then what is the guarantee that they're going to purchase it? So if they're not going to utilize for the purpose for which it was given, it is not going to achieve the objective of the scheme. The scheme is not going to achieve its objective. What is the objective? PDS objective is to reduce the malnutrition levels, improve the nutrition levels of the population. So this is a very significant issue. This is already there in PM Kisan. What is the purpose of PM Kisan? The money was provided for the purpose of purchasing inputs, fertilizers or seeds at the time of the cropping season, before the cropping season. Okay. Now most of this money, I have a friend in the banking sector where he says that the PM Kisan money is directly utilized by the farmers in the liquor shops. The money is going to come back to the bank again. The liquor shop vendor is going to deposit that money back into the bank. He said this actually. At the end of whatever the money that is received is going to come back to the bank at the end of the month. So this is a problem. So there is no regulation on the spending, right? Okay. and financial inclusion. Lack of financial inclusion is a very, very significant issue. Okay, now you're assuming that everybody has a bank account and they can walk the neighborhood ATM and withdraw the money. Wake up. Most of the rural areas do not even have an ATM facility. They don't even, forget about ATM, they don't even have a bank within the radius of 10 kilometers. Now just imagine a Narega beneficiary receives the payment directly into his bank account. Okay, that means the beneficiary worked for, let's say, 20 days and he has received some amount of money. Okay, now he has to travel to the nearest bank branch to withdraw the money. Okay, which means loss of pay for a day, loss of wage for a day. To and fro, it requires him 3 to 4 hours of time, and also transportation cost. If at all, due to any biometric authentication failure, if he is not going to receive the money and he has to run from pillar to post to get his biometric information changed, or Aadhaar updation, or mobile updation, or OTP generation, this and that, then it will be delayed. The government is not going to provide compensation, delay compensation, because the government has already sent the money to the bank account. Whether you received the amount or not is none of the concern. It's not the concern of the government. That is not considered for compensation in a measurement of calculation of wage compensation. So from the point of the government has already disbursed the money. This is the problem, lack of financial inclusion. See, the problem is, it is expected that the banks, especially the public sector banks, okay, the public sector banks are supposed to provide penetration of their banking services to rural areas, rural population. Okay, so they introduce this concept of banking correspondents. These banking correspondents are supposed to go to each and every village, provide this payment, provide banking services at the doorstep, at each and every village. Okay, so the banks, the traditional banks, can actually outsource this to banking correspondents. But the problem is, again, the banking correspondents started taking commission from the beneficiaries when they provide this payment directly to the beneficiary at this doorstep. This is the problem. So the entire success of DBT mechanism hinges upon the strength of financial inclusion initiatives. Without financial inclusion, it is impossible. Financial inclusion doesn't mean merely providing bank account. You have to provide other banking services as well. What are they going to do with the bank account if they can't even withdraw the money as and when they want? Right? And also, most of the farmers, they don't want the money to be deposited in the bank account, because the PM Kisan, especially, whenever the government provides this PM Kisan, which is around 5,000, 6,000 rupees, 2,000 rupees is given at 3 intervals. Okay, there are some state governments like Odisha or Telangana, they are providing over and above the PM Kisan, they are providing more amount based on their Kalia scheme, Raitu Bandhu scheme. But in most of the states, it is 6,000 rupees. 2,000 rupees is given at 3 intervals and 3 seasons. The 2,000 rupees is actually deducted by the bank for arrear payments. So they don't receive any money. That is why most of the farmers do not want to deal with the bank. They don't want to go to the bank, because they have already taken loans from the Kisan credit card. Due to the crop failure or due to any other reason, if they defaulted on the payment, the first thing is actually they would remove the payment, or interest payment, or delay payment, whatever it is. So there is no point, isn't it? So this is the issue. Lack of financial inclusion and digital connectivity. Digital connectivity is very, very important, because they don't even receive they can't even check the balance. Okay, yes.
Sir, but if farmer is defaulting on a Kisan credit card payment, doesn't the government take care of the default?
Government doesn't take care of the default. No, government provides interest subvention, subsidy on the interest, and if you timely repay the amount, they will give extra fresh loans. But government is not going to. So you're indirectly saying that loan waiver. Farm loan
waiver.
waiver.
I
Farm
thought there was a facility of loan waivers.
No, there is no such facility. Farm loan waiver is actually a populist policy, but it's not an institutionalized scheme as such. Okay. Okay. And misutilization of subsidy amount, lack of financial inclusion, and one more important thing. Let's say, okay, instead of providing food grains at the subsidized prices, the government started providing money directly into the bank account of each and every PDS beneficiary. Okay, that is going to reduce the cost, and it is very time efficient, because at the very first day of each and every month, the people will receive the money. Okay, and it is going to wider choice to the consumer. They are going to purchase it from the market. Let us assume that all the beneficiaries are rational human beings, and they're using only for the intended purpose for which it is given. Okay, what is the problem? Even then there is a problem. There is a problem from the market.
If the demand is too high, the prices will be very high.
Inflation.
Inflation.
What if the money is not sufficient to purchase the goods? See, right now the food inflation is actually not directly hurting. It is hurting, definitely. It is not hurting to a large extent to the rural population or the urban population who are covered by the government PDS, isn't it? Now you are saying that whatever the inflation that is going to be, the burden is borne by the government, because it is going to procure, it is going to make the food grains available at the subsidized price. Okay, it may increase the food subsidy burden of the government, but here you're providing a fixed amount of money, and that money might not be sufficient to purchase the food grains. So inflation, that is why PM Kisan can never replace fertilizer subsidy. The moment you receive fertilizer subsidy and provide the money, the fertilizer companies are going to increase the amount. You understand? So fertilizer subsidies are supposed to be provided. Of course, change the mechanism. Okay, inflation. Right. That's it. Any other issue? Do you find? I think that's it. So these are the issues or concerns with respect to the DBT mechanism. So what? We shouldn't implement DBT then? We should. We have to overcome this issue. What are the solutions? What do you suggest? What do you suggest? Yes.
So we could use CBDC and program it
Right.
to
Yes. CBDC mechanism. CBDC can be utilized for welfare benefits. Okay. For example, instead of providing the normal physical currency, fiat currency, physical currency, the government can consider providing subsidy benefit, consider paying them in the CBDC, the digital rupees, which are programmable, which is a programmable currency. That means by programming it, the government can actually impose end use restrictions on their spending. That means that money can be spent only in certain food outlets. That means they work like food coupons. Indirectly they work like food coupons. That means you can use that money only in the food outlets, so thereby you can regulate the spending. And also, see, CBDC is such a, very such an innovation. You can put you can put an expiry date for this amount. So for a digital rupee that is given to a particular beneficiary should be spent only, let's say, in 6 months or 1 year. So he'll be forced to spend that money for the intended purpose. So end use restrictions can be imposed. So CBDC is one thing. CBDC payment, central bank digital currency payment. You understood? I'm not getting into the nature of the CBDC and how it works, but CBDC digital rupees are programmable. Unlike the physical currency, the government can put restrictions on its usage. These digital rupees can be utilized by putting the restrictions. They can be made available for spending only in certain food outlets, certain outlets. So that by thereby regulating the spending. Okay. and CBDs is fine, but better inclusion and exclusion measures, right? Identification of beneficiary is very important. Rational identification of beneficiary. Okay, identification of beneficiaries, steps to take in the identification of beneficiaries, right? And financial inclusion, what are you going to do to the financial inclusion? Digital connectivity, improve digital connectivity. And expand the financial inclusion network, banking network. Okay, so the government has already started providing license to differentiated banks like small finance banks, payment banks. The major objective of the payment bank is to provide financial inclusion services, financial services, banking services to the underserved population, isn't it? So payment services, either you for the bill payment, for receiving the government subsidy benefits, and for sending the remittances. These are the major purposes, isn't it? Even for the small finance banks, regional rural banks, right? So the government has to take measures to expand the banking network in the rural areas. Okay, that's it. You can add more points, like how do you identify the beneficiary by digitalizing your land records. You can directly identify the beneficiary, digitalization of land records and all these things. Okay, right, clear, very simple. You have 4 or 5 points on each on either side of the argument, and some suggestions, a good introduction. It will definitely fetch you. If it is a 15 marker question, it will definitely give you 6 to 7 marks. Please provide examples. I keep saying this, please provide examples, as many examples as possible for each and every argument. Don't keep on explaining the example. Whatever you want to explain it in the argument. The example should only substantiate the argument, right? Fine, that's it. Coming back to the steps taken by the government, first is of course DBT mechanism, and second thing, use of technology like geotagging. Geotagging is a technology which was used, or any other technology basically. Geotagging of sites, for example, Narega works are geotagged. That means the updation of the Narega work can be clearly seen on website where the satellite based images are uploaded from time to time. So there is no corruption. You can't fool the government, right? Social audit, very important. It was introduced, it was made compulsory through law in the Narega. It should actually made compulsory for all the other schemes, other welfare measures. As I told you, Meghalaya is the only state where it has expanded this mandated social audit to almost 20 schemes. So the biggest advantage of social audit is, one thing, it is going to encourage people participation. So then they will talk about it. See, this is first point of encouraging people participation. And second thing, it will give feedback. It will not only improve transparency and accountability, because you are answerable to the Gram Sabha, right? Transparency and accountability. And also it will give feedback if there is any problem designing faults in the welfare scheme, in that particular scheme, then it will provide a feedback. The feedback can be sent to the government. Yes, feedback and mid-course correction. So these are the advantages of social audit, very, very important. And community engagement. You know what? The government is actively seeking the help of self-help groups. Government is actively seeking the help of self-help groups and the local Gram Sabha for the efficient implementation of the welfare schemes. For example, National Rural Livelihood Mission. National Rural Livelihood Mission is actually going to provide a skill and also loans to the self-help groups, because you engage the community, that is going to improve the people participation, and people and the beneficiaries of the welfare scheme is going, they are not going to, I mean, they will become active stakeholders in the development process rather than being mere beneficiaries. Under National Rural Livelihood Mission, the government is saying that government is encouraging the women in the rural areas to come and form self-help groups, and government may provide some sort of skill support and financial support through loan, so that they can take up any entrepreneurial activities and provide employment to the rural women. So they're being empowered. The government is not providing any freebie, they're being empowered. Okay, so this is what community engagement, this will make them active stakeholders in the development process. Understand? And portability of benefits. Portability of benefits, is there any example? Can you give me any example? What is portability of benefits? If you remember, in the previous class we were discussing about the inadequate coverage of beneficiaries. One such issue is migrants. How often welfare services are not provided to the migrants, because they are supposed to provide their residential certificate as a residential documents, right? So the government has been introducing this portability of welfare benefits. That means no matter where you go, irrespective of your destination or origin state, you're going to continue to receive the benefits payments. Sir, you're going to receive the benefits of the government. Okay, best example is one nation one ration card. Okay, so one nation one ration card, under one nation one ration card, no matter where you go, all that you need to do is to have show your uh, Aadhaar card and also the ration card. Identify yourself, whether you are a beneficiary or not, and you can get the PDS entitlements from the local PDS outlets. Is there any issue here? The implementation issues. What is the issue? A question can be expected on one nation one ration card, either in GS paper 3 or paper 2. What is the issue?
So one thing could be that the dietary requirements of the migrants will be different from
Right.
those of
Dietary requirements of the migrants might be different from the dietary requirements of the local population, right? Some people could avail it multiple times. I don't think, Sumati, I don't think they can avail it multiple times. Okay, I don't think they can avail it multiple times, because it is biometrically authenticated, right? So it is recorded in the digital books. So the biggest problem is actually dietary patterns. Dietary patterns of migrant population is different, and second, lack of data on migration. Lack of data on migration. Overburden and some agriculture face more migration, right? Very good. The problem is actually the burden is on the states, but the financial burden is compensated by the union government. See, portability of benefits can be applicable in those schemes where the entire funding is provided by the government, union government. See, even if it is there are certain states where the procurement is centralized, there are certain states where the procurement is decentralized. That means if there is a state agency which is going to procure the food grains and send it to each and every PDS outlet, and whatever the cost that is actually incurred by that particular state agency is supposed to be compensated by the FCI. each and every rupee is going to be compensated by the FCI. So if you say there is not even a single rupee of burden on the state government, the cost incurred for providing each and every food grain is going to be subsidized or compensated by FCI. So that is why one nation one ration card is going, there is a scope for successful implementation of one nation one ration card, which may or may not be seen in other schemes. Like, is there any other scheme where the portability of benefits are there? You will read about it. Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, we will discuss this in the health chapter. Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, where the government has introduced this concept of portability, but of course it requires great level of state coordination among the states. Okay, there are certain issues with respect to this portability in Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. So under this, the beneficiaries are going to receive free tertiary and secondary care, free hospitalization up to 5 lakh rupees. Okay, up to 5 lakh rupees. The problem is actually, let's say, if I'm the beneficiary, if I don't like the health services that are provided in my state, I may cross the border and go to the nearest city in the next state and get the health services there. This will increase the burden on certain states where the health infrastructure is very good. So there is no incentive for my state to improve the health infrastructure. Understand? So this is the problem. So there is always, with respect to this portability of benefits, there is a scope of increasing burden on certain states. Here in the one nation one ration card, even if it is, there is no financial burden, but there is an administrative burden. But in the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, there is actually financial burden because it is going to improve the burden on the local health infrastructure. That is what happening with respect to Delhi. Delhi health infrastructure is providing services to almost 3 to 4 states, neighbor states, UP, Rajasthan, Haryana, Punjab. And there are certain hospitals which had to clearly state that in their guidelines priority will be given. Delhi government, Delhi state government has actually said this. Priority will be given to the Delhi residents over any other state residents. So where is the incentive for the other states to improve their health infrastructure? Anyways, we are going to discuss about Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana when we discuss the health topic. So portability of benefits is a good step in the right direction. However, the government has to provide enough incentives for the origin states, every state, to improve the services at their origin state as well, not to leave the migrants to their fate so that they can depend upon the destination state. Okay, so it requires great level of coordination among the states. Okay, and outcome based budgeting. If you remember, one of the limitations of welfare schemes is that these welfare schemes, most of the welfare schemes do lack outcome orientation. They emphasize more on the output rather than the outcome. How many schools have been built, how many primary health centers have been built, rather than how much of literacy rate has improved, how much of what kind of improvement the society has seen in terms of infant mortality rate, maternal mortality rate, child stunting and wasting, right? So outcome based budgeting is a process, that is an initiative introduced by the government, where before the start of budget session, each and every ministry, you might have read it in the polity, each and every ministry would send its demands to the finance ministry. So they prepare a demand report where saying that these are the items of expenditure and we need this much of amount of money, and these demands are voted in the parliament, in the Lok Sabha, and they'll find it whether it requires the same amount of money or not. That's a different thing. But even when the preparing of the demand report, each and every minister has to find out what about the allocation that was made in the last financial year, whether it has achieved its objectives or not. If it fails to achieve the objectives, then have to reconsider the reallocation. If the government has already spent, let's say there is Minister of Education, the Education Department provides a budget report every year to send it to the Finance Minister. Okay, then in their demands, they have to find out, while they prepare the demand report, they have to find out what happened to the 1,000 crores that were already allocated last year for the education. Has it resulted in any outcome, improvement in the outcome? If not, why are we asking 1,000 crores again? So this is outcome based budgeting, right? So these are certain steps taken by the government to improve the efficiency of welfare services deliveries, right? That's it. Any doubt? I'll provide you notes today. I didn't provide the notes on the first day. Right. Any doubts? Okay. Next. The most hot topic, controversial topic, freebies. The Prime Minister has coined a new term for freebie. What is it? Freebies. During the election campaign, the Prime Minister has coined a new term, Revdi. Yes. Revdi culture should be discouraged. Right. Okay. This is also a topic which is very important. Trust me, there has never been a question on this topic. You can expect question on this anytime soon. Not exactly using the word freebie, but somehow they masquerade the question without using the word freebie. The question would remain around the freebie. Okay, it centers around the argument of the freebies. Now my question is, what is a freebie? What is a freebie? I request more of you to turn on the camera so that I can see if you're listening or not. Free service by the government. Ritik said free service by the government. So in that case, PDS provided by the government is a freebie. Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, where the government is providing free insurance, that means free health services, is that a freebie? Support provided by the government for political motives. How do you judge the motives? For example, I say, I'll come back to. For example, I say government is providing Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana to get the votes. I don't care. You understand? Motive is a very subjective term. How do you objectively define what is freebie or not? Yes, Siddhu, you're saying something.
So my point was like the timing matters.
Timing matters. For example, if I say the government is launching a new infrastructure project just before the elections, that is a freebie. Definitely not. Anything else? This is the problem. Everybody talks about freebies, but there is no objective definition for freebie. You understand that? So when the Prime Minister said it, but a lot of people actually countered by showing the examples given by the same government in multiple states. That look, this your government is providing freebie, and some of them even asked that the government is providing free food grains to 80 crores of population even after 70 years of independence. What is the biggest freebie than this? And how do you justify it? This is the problem. Non-essential free service. What is non-essential free service? What is essential and one? Can you give me any example of non-essential free service? You said non-essential free service, bus ride. Okay, coming to bus rides. There are certain state governments which are providing free public transport facilities to women, isn't it? Okay, what if I say providing bus rides to women is going to improve the female labor participation because there are mobility restrictions on women? This is going to unshackle the mobility restrictions, unshackle the women from these mobility restrictions. If there is a vehicle at a home, it is generally most likely to be possessed or owned and controlled by the men in the house, not the women. So there is a beautiful thing how gender and energy access go hand in hand. There is a discrimination, gender-based discrimination in the access to the energy as well. Digital access, energy access, automobile access. So for better female labor participation, This is going to help. So now tell me whether it is a freebie or not. Yes, Palguna?
Sir, I believe, sir, if you're giving something as a freebie, it's when you need to identify the beneficiaries. For example, if you want to impose a female labor in participation, you're supposed to probably have a criteria to tell what are
Right.
the set of women who needs to get a benefit of this.
Right.
Telling all women would have the benefit of this would become a freebie.
Right. Freebies generally tend to be universal without having any rational targeting of the beneficiaries. Right. See, the problem is actually you cannot come up with any foolproof definition for freebie. There is a paper given by Reserve Bank of India on freebies and its impact on the state's health finances. How most of the state governments are introducing freebies and what is going to impact, how it is going to impact the state health finances, like agriculture loan waiver and going back to the old pension scheme and providing cheaper electricity services to the consumers, all these things. Okay, but unfortunately, even in the paper, even in that report, they could not come up with a definition. They didn't even come up with a definition. I have gone through the entire report. So all the more reason why I'm expecting a question is actually there is no literature available in the public domain on this. None of the department has come up with a proper definition of what is freebie. There is no foolproof definition of freebie. The idea is actually the discussion on this freebie is not with a motive or intention to provide the definition which anybody could not given. No, we have to understand certain characteristic features which are typical of freebies, which are contrary to welfare schemes. So our idea is to differentiate it. Okay, that is why I'm asking you certain questions which are generally debatable. There are certain services, there are initiatives provided by the government, they are generally debatable. For example, let's say providing free bicycles to female students. Is it a freebie or a welfare initiative? Give your opinion. I'm not going to judge you on your opinion.
So it could be taken as a welfare initiative.
Why?
Because first of all, legal participation will increase. They'll have access to transport.
No, for students, for teenagers.
For teenagers,
Cycles are given for teenagers, right?
There will be more inclusion in the schools. They'll be going to schools because the transport will be easily available. Because usually they spend money on the transport of their male children. They would rather not spend money on female.
Right. Yes, Ritik.
So according to me, if they don't have any other means of transport in their family, then it could be beneficial. So it depends on the beneficiaries.
Depending on the beneficiaries. Yes. In fact, to all girls without criteria, it may be called a freebie. So again, you're talking about to whom it is given. Whether are you targeting them or not? Are you targeting based on a rational criteria or not? That's what you're saying. Okay. In fact, providing free bicycles to school students, especially the girl students, was actually suggested by National Education Policy. You go to the National Education Policy document, it was clearly written, and it also said that the state should also consider providing financial benefits, financial incentives to the families for providing their children to the school. The state of Andhra Pradesh is providing 15,000 rupees for each and every mother to send the children to the school per year. Okay, of course there is no targeting there. That's how it becomes a beneficiary. That's how it becomes a freebie. You understand? The intention is good, but you fail to target it. It is provided for each and everybody, including to those mothers who are sending their children to private schools. So that is a problem. Okay. The same thing. What about free laptops? Laptops are given. So there is a debate. There is always a debate. And farm loan waiver. How do you justify farm loan waiver? Okay. Now that you're talking about farm loan waiver, is it a freebie or a welfare initiative? You tell me here. You asked the question. What is your opinion on it? Free welfare initiative or a freebie? Okay. Farm loan waiver. I call it a freebie. Okay, it depends upon the farmer's income level. Okay, I'll come back to that. So the biggest difference between a freebie and a welfare scheme is a welfare scheme would have a long-term objective, which is not seen or evident in a freebie. Okay, let's take the example of any welfare scheme. It has a long-term objective. Let's say when you say that government is providing free food grains to 80 crores of population, there is no bigger freebie than this. No, it has a long-term objective. What is the long-term objective? To improve the nutrition levels in the population, to reduce the child stunting, wasting, to reduce the infant mortality rate, maternal mortality rate, isn't it? Right? So there is a long-term objective. Example, PDS, or the government is providing affordable housing access under Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. Is it a freebie? No, you are trying to reduce the poverty by increasing the standard of living of the population. That is the objective. Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. You are providing free insurance. The beneficiary can go to either public school, public hospital, or private hospital, any hospital, and get the services. It is not a freebie. It is going to improve the health of the population. Affordable access, universal health coverage is the ultimate objective. Right? Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. The same thing. Narega. What is the objective of the Narega? To provide employment opportunities to the rural population during lean season, so that it will prevent distress migration to the urban areas. So to prevent the distress migration to the urban areas during non-farming season, non-crop season is the objective, and to improve the agrarian demand in the rural areas, that is the objective. So irrespective of how sustainable how well the scheme is being implemented, that's not the question, whether it has an objective or not. Unlike if freebie is a short-term populist policy. Example, loan waiver. What is the objective? What is the long-term objective? Farm loan waiver packages. Is it going to address any root cause of the farming issues, farming crisis? Is it going to improve double the farmer's income? Is it the objective? No. It is going to improve the infrastructure of the rural markets. Is it going to reduce overcome the market inefficiencies? Is it going to improve the productivity? How are you addressing the issues? Is it going to improve the financial inclusion of the farmers? Nothing. It is a short-term palliative care. That means you are giving a painkiller, which is going to reduce your pain for 2 months or 3 months. Again, you're back to square one. That is the problem. It is a short-term populist policy. Okay. Now, as a continuation to this, when you have an objective, you are going to rationally target your beneficiaries. PDS is given to only those individuals, those families who cannot afford food, food commodities in the market. So there is a criteria, right? Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, same criteria. The beneficiaries are going to be identified by socio-economic caste census deprivation criteria, that the 3-pronged strategy we have discussed. Narega is given to rural population. It is not provided to urban people or anybody. So rural, skilled, semi-skilled or unskilled manual labor, right? So rational targeting of the beneficiaries is there, because you want to achieve a particular objective. See, what is the objective of Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana? Universal health coverage. For universal health coverage, you have to start from the bottom of the 40% of the population. So the last 40% of the population is covered under Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. It is not going to be that is going to achieve the objective of universal health coverage. You don't have to provide the same services to salaried employed who is already covered by insurance, private health insurance. right? Whereas here there is no targeting of the beneficiaries. They tend to be universal, right? They tend to be universal. Example, most of the state governments are actually providing subsidy on the electricity consumption, domestic electricity consumption, not the farmers, not for the agriculture purpose, even for the domestic consumers. In the state of Delhi, up to 200 units, you are not charged anything. It is applicable for everybody, irrespective of the income status. Irrespective of the income status. Even if you're living in DLF Camellia, you're still going to not charged for 200 units, up to 200 units. So that is the thing. So example, electricity subsidies. The same thing, even not just domestic consumption. For example, let's say the government is going to provide, most of the state governments are providing subsidized electricity to the farmers. Is there any differentiation between the rich farmer and poor farmer? No. In fact, some of the state governments are providing free electricity, completely free electricity. I think state of Telangana has been providing free electricity. Why? Why do you have to provide the free electricity for a rich farmer, a landlord who is controlling 50 to 100 acres of land? No, not necessary. So that is what, because you're not targeting the beneficiaries, because there is no objective here. So it tends to be universal. The same thing, bus ride, free transport facilities to the women. Is there any differentiation? No. That is when it tends to become a freebie. Okay, you can't justify it by saying it is a welfare scheme. And since there is an objective, often these welfare benefits are conditional. Conditions are attached. See, under Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, the government is actually not providing money to your account. The government is saying that you go and take the treatment. I'm going to pay to the service provider. You go to any private hospital, get the surgery done. The government is going to pay. So it is conditional upon the consumption of the service. Whereas free electricity, free bus ride is provided. There is no objective, so there is no condition. Okay, tell me, what is the objective behind providing subsidized electricity to domestic consumers? Okay, for farmers, for agriculture, let's assume that to make the farming remunerative, you want to reduce the input cost. That is why you're providing subsidized inputs like subsidized seeds, subsidized fertilizers. You're also providing subsidized electricity. Understand? But what about the domestic consumers? What is the idea? What is the purpose? What is the objective? Right? So the objective is not planned. That is why the freebies, the scheme is actually the freebies are not named. Of course, there are certain freebies which are named. I think in Maharashtra, state of Maharashtra, they have come up with some incentive per woman. What is it? Ladli scheme? What is Ladli scheme or something is there, right? So where they provide cash incentives, cash to the women. Okay. So for Ladli Bahan Yojana, yes, trying. Thank you. So they're providing, but there is no targeting of the beneficiaries. There is no condition there. Okay. Example, conditional. For example, let's say the government is providing financial incentives to rural households for constructing toilets under Swachh Bharat. What is the condition? You have to construct the toilet. Then the government is going to provide, if it is going to cost you some 20,000 rupees, government is going to provide you, let's say, 5,000 rupees financial incentive. So you have to meet the condition. Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandan Yojana. Under Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandan Yojana, the government is providing 5,000 rupees of cash benefits to each and every pregnant and lactating woman upon meeting 3 conditions. What is the objective of Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandan Yojana? To reduce the maternal mortality rates by providing wage compensation so that they can take rest during the very critical stage of their pregnancy and delivery. So the condition is to seek at least one antenatal care or to provide first cycle of immunization to the child. The idea is to reduce infant mortality rate and maternal mortality rate. So that is why it is conditional. Janani Suraksha Yojana. Under Janani Suraksha Yojana, what are you doing? What are you giving? You're giving financial incentive of 1,000 rupees to encourage institutional deliveries. What is the condition? You have to come to the hospital for your delivery. 1,000 rupees of cash benefit, including the transport facilities, are provided. What is the idea? To reduce the stillbirths, to reduce maternal mortality rate. So this is a condition. So where there is an objective, there is a condition. Under Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, you have to compulsorily receive the benefits. You have to consume the service. Right? Here it is unconditional. They tend to be unconditional. Example, free bus rides. Understand? So all these points are emanating from objective. There is no objective, so that is why there is no beneficiary targeting. There is no conditions. There are no conditions. They tend to be universal, timeless. When there are no targeting of the beneficiaries, no conditions, nothing, you will remain a passive beneficiary. You'll remain a passive beneficiary. You'll never become a part of the stakeholder, become a stakeholder or a part of the developmental process. So there is a sense of dependency on the government. There is a perpetuation of dependency on the government, right? So the beneficiaries will remain mere beneficiaries without any sense of empowerment. No sense of empowerment. You cannot objectively measure any empowerment. Whereas here there is a scope of becoming a stakeholder in the development process, not being a rational, not being a mere beneficiary. And there is a scope for empowerment, sense of empowerment, dignity. See, even in Narega, the beneficiaries are not receiving payment for free. They're doing work and receiving the wages. There is some sense of dignity. They're taking part of infrastructure development in the rural areas. They're contributing to the agriculture development, infrastructure development in the rural areas, and they're receiving salaries for their contribution of the contribution. They're receiving wages for their contribution. So there is a sense of dignity. There is no such sense of dignity. So you can objectively measure the success, but you cannot objectively measure the success of freebies. Objective measurement of success is possible. Not possible here. Okay, if I say free bus rides to the population women, whether it is a successful or a failure, how do you measure it? You can only measure whether how many women are actually taking the benefit of the scheme, but not by any outcome. So outcome based measurement of the success, basically you can better say that outcome based measurement of success of these welfare initiatives is possible. Here there is no outcome, there is no objective, so there is no outcome. Lone waiver, what is outcome? Free electricity subsidies, what is outcome? Free bus rides, what is the outcome? At least you need an outcome. Has it really improved the female labor participation? At least try to justify it by showing that yes, in the last 4 years or 5 years, due to the free bus rides or free public transport and facilities. See, the problem is actually We are not taking a stand on these schemes, but all that we are asking is actually to be rational and justify it based on objective criteria. Again, let me tell you one more thing. There are certain schemes or there are certain initiatives where you cannot exactly divide it and label them as freebie or welfare scheme into two different watertight compartments. Sometimes some schemes may comprise of both characteristics from both freebie and welfare scheme. That is the basic idea of this discussion, is that to find out which welfare initiatives are eventually going towards freebies. Even there are certain welfare schemes where there is a proper long-term objective, but the rational targeting of beneficiaries is not there, and there are no conditions, and there is no outcome-based measurement. Then it will eventually become a freebie. This is the idea of, this is the purpose of this entire discussion. It is not to label or divide them into, this is a freebie, this is a welfare scheme. The entire debate is actually useless. The real purpose of this discussion and this differentiation is to identify which welfare schemes are slowly eventually turning into a freebie. Even there are initiatives which have been initiated with a good intention. If there is no rational targeting of beneficiaries, if there is no conditional, if it is treating the beneficiaries as passive mere beneficiaries without any sense of empowerment, and if there is no assessment of the particular welfare scheme based on its rational outcomes, then it is more of a freebie, less of a welfare scheme. Understand? That's it. This introduction, this content is more than enough for you to write any answer on this topic. Okay, trust me, remember these 5 points on each side. If you can present these arguments with proper examples, right, there can never be a better answer than this. This is all the more, give you benefit because there is no content on this topic in the public domain. The reason why I have actually made content on this topic is to find out which welfare schemes are slowly turning into freebies. That was my intention. I personally believe that the whole debate of what is freebie, what is welfare scheme is irrelevant. You cannot sometimes label them. I've tried doing it. There are a lot of schemes actually which comprises of both the characteristics features. Then I came to a conclusion that the whole discussion is irrelevant. Why are we trying to label them? It is a freebie or it is a welfare scheme. Ultimately, you have to measure the success of the scheme, whether it is possible or not. Are you able to measure the success based on outcome or not? If you can do it, there is a justification of continuing that scheme. That's it. That should be your conclusion. Okay, trust me, based on this content, if there is a question, you're lucky. There is nobody else can write a better than you. Nobody in India can write a better answer than you. Take it from me. Right? So this is, I'll provide you notes for this as well. Next, affirmative action. See, what are we discussing? The broad welfare mechanism, all the aspects of the welfare mechanism. And once this topic is done, we are going to get into each and every particular vulnerable sections. So in the syllabus point, we have said that it was mentioned that welfare schemes designed for vulnerable sections. So first of all, we discuss the broad welfare mechanism and what are the different aspects and what are the different issues, so that you can answer any broad question on it. Okay, and the next, after we are done with this, we are going to get into a particular vulnerable section one by one. Okay, right. The next topic is affirmative action. This is also another welfare service. Somebody was asking a question on reservation in the comment section. I'll discuss that here. Okay. Okay, what is affirmative action? What is affirmative action? Affirmative actions are those initiatives of the government, the policies of the government introduced for the purpose of disadvantaged and discriminated sections of the population, with an intention of reducing the discrimination and providing equal opportunities for them. Generally, these sections of the population have faced historical injustice. The idea of affirmative action is to provide them a level playing field. The ultimate objective is to achieve the objective of social justice. Okay. Affirmative action policies refers to the initiatives of the government which try to reduce the discrimination and provide equal opportunities for those sections of the population who are likely to face discrimination and who have faced historical injustice in the society. The idea is to provide them a level playing field and achieve the goal of social justice and equity. Okay, that's it. Now, any example of affirmative action? Okay, where is this concept of affirmative action mentioned in the Constitution? Not mentioned implicitly or explicitly. May not necessarily explicitly, even if it is implicitly mentioned in the Constitution or reflected in the Constitution. Can you give me examples? Your polity is done, right? Yes. Article 14, 15, 16. Right. Tell me how Article 14, which aspect of the Article 14 has given scope for affirmative action? So basically, through affirmative action, you are going to positively discriminate. Okay. Yes. Where is it mentioned in the Constitution?
So under Article 14, you have equal protection of the laws.
Right.
That will take care of it.
Right. There are two aspects to it: equality before law. Everybody is treated equally before law, and second aspect is actually equal protection of laws. That means people in different circumstances can be treated differently, with an objective of achieving the idea of equity. Equity is also a component of right to equality. Equality doesn't mean that literal equality. The objective is actually to improve the equity. Okay, so that has given scope for affirmative action. So Article 14, equal protection of laws, right? Article 15, the affirmative action policies, those policies which are going to positively discriminate them. Article 15, though it prevented discrimination based on gender, race, caste, but the amendments, there are reasonable restrictions in the Article 15 which says that the government can discriminate for the betterment of who? Women, children, social and educational backward sections, and that's it. Economically weaker sections, how can you forget it? The latest addition to the Article 15, right? EWS reservation has introduced an amendment to the Article 15, right? Article 15 and 16. It enabled or gave scope for the government to positively discriminate for the betterment of women, children, social and educationally backward sections, and economically weaker sections, right? Okay. And anything else? Somebody said Article 17, Tanya, Article 17, abolition of untouchability is actually right. But the problem is Article 17 is punishing, it's punishing untouchability actually. It has created untouchability. So it is not it's not positively discrimination. It cannot rightly fit into the definition of positive discrimination. Okay. So yes.
Under Article 16 also, you can positively discriminate persons who are.
I have given it.
Not.
Yes. Article 16. Yes. And come on, it is in the fundamental rights, Article 29 and 30. Cultural and educational rights to the minorities, isn't it? Article 29 and 30. Any section of the population with distinct culture and language has a right to preserve their culture. Article 29. And under Article 30, these minorities were given right to constitute, establish educational institutions and manage their educational institutions. That is where the minority institutional status is given to certain institutions, and they were given freedom to manage their own institutions, unlike other educational institutions which strictly come under the government control. In most of the minority institutions, the principle of reservation may not be applicable. So that is the whole controversy of Aligarh Muslim University. Whether it should be given, whether the Aligarh Muslim University should provide reservations or not, whether there should be any government control or not, whether the government should provide funds to that not. In fact, Article 30 has clearly said that. So the beauty of Constitution is actually it has anticipated the issues that may emanate out of these articles. It has clearly said that when government provides funding to educational institutions, it should not discriminate between a minority institution and a non-minority institution. Even if it is established and managed by them, the government should provide proper funding. See, for example, the government is spending, let's say 1 lakh rupees for each and every engineering student. That's what it says. So, but anyways, so let's say the government is spending 1 lakh rupees on each and every engineering student. That means it is giving that money in the form of fund to the engineering institutions so that they reduce their fee structure, so that they reduce their fee. When providing this funding to the each and every engineering institution, government should not discriminate between a minority institution and a non-minority institution. That's it. That is what it is given under Article 30. Right. So Article 29 and 30 has given special rights to preserve their culture and education. Anything else? What is Article 244? Administration of 5th and 6th schedule and tribal areas. 5th schedule and 6th schedule areas. Special provisions were made for sake of these tribal areas. Governor was given with special provisions. Certain activities were actually controlled. We will discuss about it when we discuss the tribal people. That is the first topic of vulnerable sections. Okay. And also certain powers were given for the tribal people to organize their own administrative councils. Special powers were given to them, which is not available for other regions. Right. And okay, forget about all these. Is there any article in the Constitution which mandated reservation? See, till now we are talking about Article 15 and 16. Article 15 and 16 did not mandate reservation. It enabled the government to make reservations. That means, yes, the government can positively discriminate for these sections of the population, but it did not actively say that you have to do it. But there are certain provisions in the Constitution, there are certain articles in the Constitution. Yes, political reservations, right? What is the article? Article 330 and 332. Article 330 and 332 provide reservation for SC and ST respectively. In where? Where are the reservations provided? For scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, where are the reservations provided? What do you mean by political reservations? Where the reservations are provided? Come on. Lok Sabha, Panchayat, MLA, MPs, right? In the local bodies, under 73rd and 74th Amendment Act, we have rural and urban local bodies. In the rural and urban local bodies, scheduled caste and scheduled tribes were given with reservations based on their proportion to their population. The same thing goes with state legislative assemblies. The same thing goes with Lok Sabha. The same thing goes with not Rajya Sabha. There are no reservations in Rajya Sabha. Remember, okay. There are no reservation in Rajya Sabha. 330 and 332 provide reservation for SC and STs in Lok Sabha state legislative assemblies. Okay. Next. Is there any article which actively provided which mandated reservations apart from these two? Article 335. The claims of scheduled caste and scheduled tribes in the government services. That means if the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes do not find adequate representation in the public services, they can claim for reservation in the government services. See, you are assuming that Article 15 and 16 has enabled the government to introduce SC reservation, ST reservation. Not just Article 15 and 16, it enabled, but Article 335 mandated. That is the difference. Okay. Claims of SC and ST in public services. Understand? Is there any other provision which has introduced reservation for women? Okay, I said it. 106th Constitutional Amendment. Women reservation. Right? Women reservation. One or sixth Constitutional Amendment Act. Latest edition. God knows when it is going to be implemented, but they have amended it. Okay. Okay. Affirmative action is not only about reservation. Any kind of positive discrimination, any kind of special provisions, special provisions that are given for sake of their development. Okay. It can be SC ST subplan. You might have heard about SC ST subplan. What is SC ST subplan? Most of the state governments and including union government follows this SC ST subplan. That means out of the total budgetary allocation, out of the total planned expenditure, a certain portion of the planned expenditure should be exclusively spent for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe development. That means if you're spending, let's say, if you're spending 1,000 crores on education, at least 20 to 25%, whatever it is. Some states have allocation based on proportionate to their population. If the population composition is around 25% of the total population, the 25% of this 1,000 crores should be provided for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes beneficiaries. So planned expenditure, out of the total planned allocation, a certain allocation should be spent for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe beneficiaries and their development. That is what SC ST is a plan. It has got legal backing for most of the states. Most of the states have made laws for SC and ST subplan. That means it is legally mandatory for the government to allocate that money for exclusively for SC and STs. So this is a reservation. Article 338, 350, yes, right. That is also right. Okay. So you can say scholarships given by the government for women, scholarships given for OBCs. Okay, all these are examples of affirmative action. So if there is any question, broad question in affirmative action, you have got a good introduction. Okay, you have got a good introduction where you say that affirmative action policies refers to the government initiatives taken for actively promoting the interest to reduce the discrimination and to provide equal opportunities for them who have faced historical injustice and discrimination in the society owing to their identity. Right. The idea is to provide level playing field for them along with the rest of the population and to achieve the goal of social justice and equity, which includes the idea of this affirmative action is implicitly mentioned in Article 14, 15 and 16. It is explicitly mentioned in Article 333, 332, 335 through Women Reservation Act, SC ST subplan, all these things. Okay, that's it. With this introduction, you have already scored 1 to 2 marks. Okay, yes, what is the doubt?
The Prevention of Atrocities Act would not be a part of affirmative
See,
action.
that's what I'm saying. See, it's bit dicey. You can mention it if you want, but special powers for them, you can mention it. Okay, SC assistant, you can mention it. Okay. Right. Okay. This is good actually. Affirmative action policies have definitely improved the standards of marginal sections, disadvantaged sections. Okay. Now, what are its limitations? Very, very important. A question has not been asked on this topic till now. Okay, a very potential question. I'm surprised actually. How come UPSC has never asked a question on affirmative action policies? Okay. Now, what are the limitations of affirmative action policies? See, I'm not saying that affirmative action policies have only limitations. Yes, it has got its share of success in improving the lives of standard of lives of the marginal sections, be it scheduled caste, scheduled tribes. This one thing is sure, that it has definitely improved their representation in public services, representation in education, representation in what do you say politics. Okay, definitely, but still there are certain limitations. Okay, my question to you is that what do you think, in your opinion, is the biggest lacuna of this affirmative action? Yes,
It is not.
one by one. Yes, yes.
Sir, I think the first thing would be the lack of data we are having. People that come under this need to follow under the affirmative action. The second thing would be, since we
One
have
thing,
the
first
lack
and
of data,
foremost, lack of data is an issue for any welfare scheme, right? That means you are not properly identification of the beneficiaries. In fact, for affirmative action, it is much easier because it is identity based, whether you are a scheduled caste individual or not. That's it. And this identification, this beneficiary status is actually not dynamic; it is static. Unlike in the socio-economic caste census, the criteria is pretty dynamic. Here, the criteria is actually pretty static. So, identification of beneficiaries is much easier for reservation. Next point.
since we are not able to efficiently categorize the set of people who need to come under affirmative action, you find one set of or one class of people who are making use of most of the beneficiaries, leading to the other set of people not receiving this action.
Yes. Kesang said creamy layer problem, the same thing. So the elite within the beneficiaries, that's what you're saying, who are cornering the benefits. Yes, Siddhu.
It may lead to providing a playing field, a level playing field. But in the end, the societal thought process is not changed by these affirmative actions.
Okay, so
You're providing social justice, but the discrimination still continues. The caste-based discrimination, religious-based discrimination.
Okay. So even it improved educational and economic empowerment, the social discrimination is still there, especially in the cultural spheres and day-to-day social intercourse. Okay. By the way, do you have a class after this at 10:30? Please say no. I have to complete. No. Anybody, 34, 36, 37. Do you have any class after 10:30 after this class? No, right? I have to complete this topic. Okay. Listen. Thing is, right. It failed to improve the social and cultural empowerment. Definitely. See, first of all, find out the objective. The objective is actually to provide them adequate representation in higher education, employment. Let's take the case of educational reservation for marginal sections in education and employment, education and public employment. What is the biggest limitation there? The limitation is actually it is confined to only the public institutions. So there is a reason. See, Whether it is possible, whether it is practically possible or not, it's a different thing. But there is some sound argument behind this, and that should not be the solution, of course. There are people who are demanding reservation even in the private sector employment as well. Why is that? Yes.
In the private sector, usually affirmative action is asked for because you have migrants from other states and people from other states taking up the jobs.
The sons of soil tendencies are there. It has something to do with the regionalism. Okay, that's purely emanating from sons of soil tendencies actually. Okay. The biggest problem is actually the reservations are mostly confined to public institutions. For example, public employment. The problem is, if there are no government jobs, what are they going to do with the reservation? Government is no more the prime job giver. So come out of the illusion that the reservations are actually going to definitely improve the benefits, improve the lives of marginal sections. How many sections of the population are depending upon the public sector employment? 2%, 3%. But it has created a narrative that government has done lot for the economic empowerment of the marginal sections by providing them employment, which is wrong, especially in the era of reducing the public sector employment opportunities. See, as per a decade-long public sector enterprise report, public enterprise survey report, in the decade from 2012 to 2022, there has been absolute decrease, not in the overall share, percentage decrease. There is an absolute decrease of public employment in most of the PSUs. It used to be the jobs of in the PSUs used to be around 17 lakhs, and it reduced to 14 lakhs in 2022. Despite increasing in labor participation, new graduates, new labor force has been added. Ideally, the employment opportunities should have been increased or at least been static, but it has been reduced. Okay, so the public is government is no more the prime job giver. So what are they going to do with the reservation? So it's created an illusion that the government is providing something, but it is not going to really economically empower them. So that is where this increasing demand for reservations in the private sector is coming from. If you see, it is backed by some stat where let's see the public sector jobs and their percentage. For example, the overall population of SC industry, its population is
Yes, sir.
okay. The public sector jobs, the representation in public sector jobs is almost proportional to their population, but when it comes to their private sector participation, it is less than their population for scheduled caste. The same thing goes for scheduled tribes as well. Their population is around 9% according to this survey, based on the survey report, and their representation is almost proportional to their population, but their representation in the private sector is much lesser than, unlike upper caste. The population and the representation in the public sector and the representation of the private sector is much higher, disproportionate to their population, right? And that is why reservations. Okay. And also same thing goes for education as well. The government is actually providing reservations for marginal sections in the educational institutions, which is right. But what are they going to do if there are no government institutions? Even if you provide reservations in a private medical college, how many of them can afford education in the private medical colleges? There is a tribal individual coming from a tribal hamlet. Do you think even if he gets reservation in a private education institution, can afford a seat in a private medical college? So the government spending on public education has completely, especially higher education, has significantly reduced from 0.86% of the GDP in 2011 to 0.5% in 2019-20. So reservations are going to be helpful only when there is a public sector employment opportunity, when there are public sector employment opportunities, and when there is adequate spending by the government over public or higher education. If these two are not there, reservations are not going to provide any kind of benefits to economic empowerment of the marginal sections. So the idea is actually it is confined to public institutions and reduced public sector jobs and reduced government spending in higher education. Understand? The success of affirmative action policies and the reservations hinges upon this government spending. Right? Okay. And the other problem is there are grassroots failures which actually create barriers before they reach the stage of taking advantage of the reservation. See, the government has provided reservations for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes in higher education institutions and public employment. What are they going to do with the reservation in higher education when they're dropping out in the schools itself? Why are they dropping out of the school? There is no provision of education in the mother tongue. Let's say I'm a tribal individual living in a hamlet where my peer group speaks a particular language. I was born and brought up in the tribal hamlet. You are forcing me to learn or you're providing me education in the majority language. Right? So it is going to definitely impair or impact my cognitive abilities. Right after I complete or exhaust this right to education legal limit of 14 years of age compulsory education, there is no incentive for me to continue the education. I may drop out. So for a student like me, what I'm going to do with reservation in the higher education? The same thing goes for anybody. So the problem is actually there is a grassroots failure. So that is the reason. That is why we often say that only certain sections of the population are garnering the reservation benefit. That is why only second generation, third generation people are actually taking the reservation benefit, where there are large section of the population who have never tasted the benefit of reservation, even after 70 years of independence. This is the problem. Grassroots failures. There is no trickle down of the benefits of reservation because of the grassroots failures. So the pre-reservation barriers. They are not even reaching the stage where they can take advantage of the reservation in higher education and also in public employment. And also due to the poor health, poor nutritional health, most of the tribal people, they have, let's say, they have their health issues. Due to the poor nutrition and poor health, it will eventually impact their cognitive abilities. This will incentivize them to drop out of the school, and they may not continue with the education. They cannot take advantage of the reservation provided in the higher education public employment. Done. That is a limitation. Let's say even for the political reservations, think about it. This is a very important aspect. The government has provided reservations for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes at all three tiers of the government: Lok Sabha, state legislative assemblies, and also in what? The local bodies. Okay. Now my question is, it is practically impossible for any marginal household or marginal individual to contest in the elections without having any economic backup. At present day society, practically impossible for an individual even to contest an election against an SC individual or ST individual even within the reserved constituency. So that is what I said, without economic empowerment, there is no social empowerment. There is no political empowerment. The social empowerment, political empowerment without economic empowerment is irrelevant, unsustainable. That is what Dr. B.R. Ambedkar has said in the Annihilation of Caste document. Social empowerment is good, political empowerment is good, but it should also concomitant with economic empowerment. Right? In fact, let's say it is a costly affair to contest the elections. It is a very costly affair to contest the elections. Forget about winning, even to contest, even in a reserved constituency. What about the land ownership pattern of scheduled caste and scheduled tribes? The average land holding size is much lesser than the other caste groups. So where are they going to get the money from? They don't have the wealth backing. So what happens? They will be sponsored by upper caste, and that candidate will remain as a proxy candidate. Understand? They will be sponsored by the upper caste and they will remain as a proxy candidate. So even though it will improve the representation, it is not going to improve the empowerment. It may improve the representation in the politics. It might not result in political empowerment. So you failed, grassroots failures with respect to education, health. Where education? You failed to provide universal education, universal health, or economic inequalities. When these are there, the reservation in higher education, employment, public employment, and politics may improve the representation, but may not empower them. Understand? Okay. Talking about the representation, if you see, what I believe is that the most important limitations of our affirmative action policies is that somehow the affirmative policies have given too much of emphasis on proportional representation concept. See, for example, what happened? Whenever there is a problem of discrimination in the society, they try to objectively measure it through proportional representation in different aspects. How well this particular community is represented in the public employment, how well this community is represented in the politics. Then immediately the knee-jerk reaction is to give them reservation. Right? Reservation were given scheduled caste and scheduled tribes or OBCs or women. What is the idea behind providing women reservation for women in the politics? Because they are underrepresented. The representation is hardly 10%, 11% in the Lok Sabha. Whereas the population is around 50%, the representation is only 11%. Okay. So whenever the problem is actually about representation, they try to give reservation. Reservation has become the quick fix solution. And these affirmative action policies are actually overly emphasizing on the principle of proportional representation. Yes, we have to provide proportional representation to them. The problem is, it is actually not addressing the structural issues. It is improving the proportional representation, but it may not address the structural barriers, structural issues behind the lack of adequate representation. Best example, women reservation. We have discussed this topic in the women topic in the society, and what are the reasons for low political participation of women in the Indian society. There are patriarchal attitudes both by the voters and also the political parties. Political parties don't favor women candidates because they have their assumption about their winnability, and also women do not have ownership of the property. Their female labor participation is also low. That is why they don't have financial backing. It is impossible, practically not possible to contest the elections and win the elections without reservations for women because of their weak financial background. and prevailing patriarchal attitudes. All these are the reasons. But what are you done? What are you doing? What have you done? You have provided reservation. By providing reservation, you have put up a fight among the women without empowering them to contest against men and win the elections. You are asking them fight among themselves and find a candidate among yourself. Because the government is assuming that you are not fit enough to fight the elections, contest the elections over men and win the elections. That is what real political empowerment is. This is not. Reservation can improve the representation, but it cannot improve the political empowerment. So the overemphasis on the principle of representation, proportional representation, may not address the structural issues. May not address the structural issues behind structural issues faced by the marginal sections. And the other problem is that the government is only concerned with the proportional representation. ST reservation is provided, let's say. Okay, 7% or 8% of reservation is provided. The government is only concerned about how many ST individuals have occupied the seats in the education institutions, public employment, and also the political seats. But it doesn't care about who is taking the benefits. In the eyes of the government, there has been empowerment. No. Second generation, third generation benefits are cornered by a significant section of the population within the marginal sections. It failed to trickle down. The benefits have not trickled down to the lower and downtrodden sections within the marginal sections. So it masked inequalities. It masked inequalities within the marginal sections. Understand? This is the problem with too much of emphasis on obsession, basically. Obsession on proportional representation. There is only one solution: improve the representation. That's it. It has become a quick fix, one-dimensional solution to the problem. This is the problem. That is the limitation of affirmative action policies in India. Understand? And okay, fine. You have the problem. You have a solution, no matter how stupid the solution is. The problem is, who are you targeting? The idea is to target the marginal sections, but your definition of marginal sections keep on expanding. Scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, scheduled caste, OBC, women, economic weaker sections, and dominant castes. Certain state governments have given separate reservations for dominant caste as well, like how Maratha reservation were given by the Maharashtra. Understand? So there is no end to it. Over expansion of the beneficiaries. This is the problem. This is the issue. Now tell me, what is the problem with this over expansion of beneficiaries? What is the problem with this over expansion of? What is the problem? What if new beneficiaries are going to be added? Yes, Ritik.
So there's going to be a constant change of the goalpost in which the government is working towards providing the support to the marginal section, but as there is continuous change in the goalpost, they are keep on diverting towards other section, including other people as well.
Okay.
So there's no static way in. There's no.
So basically, the government is duping more number of people, more communities.
Correct. So
Okay.
constantly they're shifting the goalpost, and it is affecting the people who are in the marginal section.
Okay. Yes, Siddha. What's your argument?
The goal was never to just increase the number of beneficiaries. It was to decrease the beneficiaries, so the social justice is once achieved, and then this reservation does not have to be a part of it.
Right.
If you keep increasing it, you will just burden the government, and you will end the free competition and the liberty of other people to have an equal chance.
So
Plus, you will give chances to people for political motives instead of being deprived of something.
Basically, your argument is centered around meritocracy. So there should be eventual idea goal of achieving this meritocracy argument. Okay. Yes.
So most of the time, such expansions are only politically driven. So
Politically driven.
they are thinking about the short-term benefits rather than focusing on long-term, fixing the solution, fixing the
That's it.
problem.
That is a problem for everybody. That is not a problem with expanding the beneficiaries. Even for earlier beneficiaries also that should be a problem. Yes, Shreya, right. Dilutes the most needy among the expanded beneficiaries. That is the problem. You're creating competition and you're making more challenging for the needy to get the benefits. For example, let's say now earlier the reservation limit is actually 50%. Okay. Now you have given EWS reservation and it has increased to 60%. Now the benefits, the general category is actually for everybody, not just for upper caste. It is for everybody. So you have reduced the general category to only 40%. Now let's say there is any state government where there is another reservation for a specific community over and above this 60%. Let's say it is 70%. That means it has further reduced to 30%. That means you're all the way making it difficult for a reserved candidate or marginal candidate to contest in general category. So you're confining the reserved candidate only to take the benefits in the reserved category. Understand? So with reducing general category candidate seats, right? Even with the OBC reservation, there is a reason why dominant caste reservation demands from the dominant caste is widely opposed by the OBCs, because it is going to add more beneficiaries. They have to start sharing the benefits with more number of population. It is going to create a lot of competition, especially in the backdrop of reducing seats. Everybody wants a seat in the government college. Everybody wants a government job. The problem is there are no adequate employment opportunities from the private sector. There is jobless growth. The problem is the government is not providing and expanding government institutions and government seats. So even after reservation, you are forced to go to the private education institutions and pay the money. So that is the problem. Over expansion of the beneficiaries, it actually goes against the very purpose for which reservations were given. Since they are not able to compete because of the historical injustice, their socio-economic education, social educational economic they're backward. That is why they are not able to compete. That is why you are providing reservation to them so that they can compete with them with a level playing field. But you are making it difficult by adding more number of beneficiaries. Isn't it going against the very purpose for which reservations were introduced? This is the problem. Over expansion of the beneficiaries for political purposes. See, the problem is in the OBC right now there are around more than 3,000 castes. There has never been a rational, rational classification. There has never been a rational assessment. The National Commission for Backward Caste Groups, this is a constitutional body. It has become a constitutional body now. When was the last time it has removed any community from OBC list? This is a problem. Okay. And criteria, rigid criteria. The first argument, somebody said identification of the beneficiary is a problem. No, identification of beneficiary for affirmative action policies is very easier because it is based on the identity. It is not based on your socio-economic or education status. It is based on identity, your gender identity, your caste identity. Right? That is the problem. Your identity is rigid, static. Okay. The criteria should be flexible. Okay. Because even Supreme Court said that said that in a judgment, saying that caste-based reservations are fine, but often it leads to too much of adherence to one identity where there are multiple identity-based discriminations. There are multiple factors of discrimination. Okay. Caste, class, gender, disability, rural or urban, okay, minority religion or majority religion, any minority, linguistic minority, religious minority. Okay, there are a lot of issues are there, right? But criteria is often stick to a single one-dimensional identity. So this led to often exclusion errors. Even deserving beneficiaries are deprived of benefits of affirmative actions because of this rigid criteria. This leads to exclusion of deserving beneficiaries. These are the limitations. Now my question is, what are the suggestions? Forged documents is an issue. See, the problem is not with the policy rate. The problem with this is the beneficiaries. Okay. So corruption is an argument for every initiative of the government. Okay. Right. Now tell me, what are the suggestions are you going to suggest? Just bear with me for 5 more minutes. The topic is done. Suggestions. First and foremost, rationalize the beneficiaries. Rationalize the beneficiaries. How do you rationalize the beneficiaries? Have you heard about subcategorization? Subcategorization. Recently, Supreme Court has allowed both the union government and state government to subcategorize even scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Right? Scheduled caste, scheduled tribes. Right? So in most of the states, OBCs have been subcategorized. OBC A, B, C, D. Depending upon their degree of deprivation, priority is given to certain communities. That means reservation within the reservation. Within the 27% of reservation, 5% should be given, 5% reservation priority should be given to a certain communities. That is subcategorization. The same thing can be expected to extend it to scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, especially when only few states, few households and few communities are taking over the large benefits. Justice Rohini Commission has already given its report to government in favor of subcategorization in scheduled caste, OBCs and also scheduled tribes. Right? Subcategorization and also limiting the multi-generation benefits. This is a very innovative idea, multi-generational benefits. This will help in trickling down the benefits to the downtrodden sections within the marginal population. Okay, multi-gener. How do you do it? That means, let's say, for example, if parents have already taken advantage of reservation to a certain extent, let's say for a group 3 employee, or group 2 employee has already taken the reservation benefits, his or her children should be given reservation benefits only from group 2 level, not from the group 3 and group 4 employment opportunities. That will vacate the space for downtrodden sections who have not taken the benefits in the previous generation. So this is what limiting the multi-generational benefits. I'm not saying that the multi-generational benefits should not be completely should be completely deprived. You can provide them, but put a barrier. If your parents have already taken the benefits for group 1 employment, so provide from group 1 stage, group A position, not for the employment opportunities below that level. So this is one idea of vacating the space. This will reduce, this will help in trickling down, filtering down, trickling down the benefits to the deserving beneficiaries who have not tasted the benefits of reservations before in the previous generations. Okay, this is one aspect. And S, flexible criteria, right? Flexible identification criteria, prioritization of benefits. Yes. How do you flexible identification? How do you flexibly identify the criteria? What do you mean by flexible criteria? How do you do it? What is the mechanism? Give weightage to each and every identity. Give weightage to each and every factor of discrimination. Let's say there are multiple factors of discrimination. Let's say caste, okay, disability, right, gender, minority status, rural or urban. That means you're coming from a hilly state where there were no proper educational and economic opportunities, right? Where they don't have quality educational opportunities. That is one of the reasons why they could not get the quality skill development. So provide them some sort of reservation, irrespective of their caste background. So depending upon the identity, a certain amount of weightage can be fixed. Based on that, each and every individual can be given a score. Based on the score, you should give the priority. Understand my point? Let's say for caste, you are giving 50% of score. For disability, you are giving 20%. For gender, you are giving 10%. For minority status, 5%. For rural candidates, 2%. Based on the weightage, one individual is given the criteria. So the problem is actually deprivation is not one dimensional, it is multidimensional. Deprivation is multidimensional, right? So you should give reservation based on this multidimensional deprivation criteria. So give weightage to it. Let's say there is an individual, lower caste women and lower caste men. Lower caste women face discrimination on two factors, gender discrimination and also caste discrimination. Lower caste men only face caste discrimination. Lower caste women and disabled, the discrimination is much worse compared to lower caste men with disability. Understand? So there is multiple layers of discrimination, multiple layers of deprivation. It shouldn't be one dimensional. So a weightage can be given. Based on the weightage, a particular score can be given to each and every individual. Based on the score, the priority will be given, right? Next. What else? Of course, grassroots failures. Provide universal access, grassroots development, universal access to quality education, universal health access. So universal access to quality education and health at grassroots level, so that they can take advantage of reservation in the higher education. They can take advantage of reservation in the public employment. So there should not be any pre-reservation barriers. Okay. Next. Assessment of the beneficiaries is very important. You're expanding the list of the beneficiaries from per every decade. Every 10 years, you're adding a new beneficiary. Right? So you're expanding the beneficiary list. So for that you need rational identification. For that you need data. So caste census data is actually a right measure. This will enable you to understand the impact of reservations, so that the government can take evidence-based policy whether to extend reservation to a particular community or not. If a particular community has already improved its representation in employment, education, and also improved their socio-economic development, like their land ownership has increased, their education background has improved, educational qualifications have increased, then remove it from the reservation list. So to take that conscious decision, you need caste census data. So these are various measures you can suggest. Okay, that's it. Structural reform, so that there is no hurdle in scope of development. That's what I said. Structural reforms means universal access to quality education, universal access to health, universal access to land ownership. This will improve their education, health, and economic empowerment, so that they can take advantage of the reservations in higher education, public employment, and also politics. Subcategorization point. Subcategorization means, let's say, the argument is that there are inequalities within the marginal sections. See, what is one limitation? The government's representation or government reservation policies are so obsessed with this idea of proportional representation. That means there are scheduled tribes who are not adequately represented in the public employment. So let's provide them reservation. Scheduled castes are not represented, so provide them reservation. But which communities within the scheduled tribes are actually taking the benefits? Only 5% of the communities in the scheduled tribes are taking more than 90% of the benefits. The rest of the 95% are actually deprived of any benefits, isn't it? So for that reason, we have to subcategorize them. So first priority should be given to certain communities who are not adequately represented within the ST. The same thing goes for OBCs. For example, there are, let's say, around 3000 caste groups in the OBC list. Out of that, there are most of the caste groups who are not adequately represented. But in the face of the government, OBCs have representation, 27% representation. But within OBCs, there are inequalities within the multiple communities. So these communities should be given higher priority. So for that, subcategorization is required. So the OBCs should be categorized into two groups, at least A, B. First, within the 27% reservation, let's say 10% reservation should be given to this A category communities. Once this 10% OBC seats are filled, then the rest of the 17% seats are supposed to be filled by the rest of the OBCs. Understand? So that is subcategorization. The same thing can be extended to SC, ST. Most of the, even the union government has given its inclination towards subcategorization of scheduled castes. Certain state governments have already given, I think Bihar is going for subcategorization of scheduled castes, if I'm not wrong. Okay, it's a politically sensitive issue, but still, subcategorization is very important to trickle down the benefits of affirmative action policies to the communities who have been deprived of the benefits. Okay, that's it. These are the suggestions you can mention. So you know what is affirmative action policies? Definition, examples, and its limitations and measures. You can write answer. You can so there is a question, of course. Read the question. Do you think the existing affirmative action is effective in achieving the goal of social justice? Give argument to justify your opinion. Okay, you introduce the affirmative action in the introduction and talk about how it has improved the representation of marginal sections in various aspects: education, employment, public employment, and also in politics, and overall social education and social educational empowerment. Okay, however, there are certain limitations, and explain the limitations. You can, since suggestions were not asked explicitly in the question, you can mention the measures in the introduction, in the conclusion itself. If at all it is explicitly mentioned, you can write down the suggestion separately. Okay, so that's it. Independent body to identify beneficiaries to avoid political benefits and appeal. Can this also be said, sir? There are independent bodies: National SC Commission, ST Commission, National BC Commission, Women Commission. Their job is to provide with the proper data how well the policies of the government for the development of these vulnerable sections are actually helping them, whether it is improving them or not. They're supposed to provide reports to the government which are supposed to be tabled in the parliament for discussion. The president sends the report to the parliament. They provide the report to the president, and president will table the report in the parliament, and they have to discuss, ideally speaking. So every year there is annual report submitted by National SC Commission, ST Commission, OBC Commission. You go to their website, you find their annual reports, right? So they have to provide suggestions of how to better target the beneficiaries, they provide feedback, right? But again, lack of political will, because of the political reasons, they don't want to remove the benefits given to certain communities. Okay, that's it. That's it with the welfare mechanism. We have covered almost all aspects of welfare mechanism broadly. I'll provide you notes today. Okay, from tomorrow we are going to discuss about affirmative actions, vulnerable sections. I'm going to start with vulnerable sections. The first vulnerable section is going to be tribes. Okay, any doubts? No doubt. Handouts for lecture 1 are not available because I wanted to give the handouts for both lecture 1 and lecture 2, the entire topic as a whole. Today I'm going to provide the PPTs and also notes together. Okay. Some of you have sent me the answers. I have evaluated them. Some of you, I think 2 students have sent them, but I meant to evaluate them. I'll get back to you by tonight or by tonight or tomorrow morning. Okay. Okay, guys. See you. We'll meet tomorrow.